Today, I'm going to show you guys how to make your own solo death ray, but always remember, safety third. The first things you're going to need is a old projector TV. You can tell if it's a projector TV by carefully opening it up. You can see 3 projector-like lenses inside. Next thing you're going to need is some scrap wood, preferably a couple of 2x4s. The more you can get, the better it will look. Some piping around 1 to 2 feet of it and a way to cut it. It can either be iron, steel, or copper. I wouldn't do plastic because it's brittle, but I suggest using metal piping. You'll need some screws. Nails will not work because you're dealing with fragile components. A screw gun with compatible screw bits for those screws, and I suggest getting 2 kinds of screws. One set that's around 1.5 inches long, and some bigger ones around 3 inches long, and a few feet of metal strapping. And you need some safety glasses, like some welder helmet or some welding goggles, and some safety gloves. Now let's go look on how to put all of this stuff together. First things first, we are going to have to take this TV apart to get what we need. The only component of this TV that we need is the screen. Do not break the screen. This is what is going to be the beating heart of this solo death ray, so protect it at all costs and don't be too rough trying to take this apart. After carefully taking it apart, I was able to get the screen. Now it's time for step 2. The second step of this stage is to make a picture frame box out of wood to hold the Fresnel lens itself. And what I'm doing here is I'm making a kind of groove for Fresnel lens to just slide into perfectly, so I don't have to use any glue or nails to hold it in. And this part took the hardest because of all of the measuring and stuff, but here's a picture of what the groove looks like and how I laid out the wood pieces. I just used the long screws. You want to be careful though, because you might accidentally split the wood if you're not careful, which I did do that several times, but overall it didn't affect me too much. For step 3, I made 2 simple A-frame structures to go on either side of the Fresnel lens to hold it nice and steady up towards the sun, and I just put 2 screws at the top to hold it in place and a small piece of wood on the top for a place to strap the Fresnel lens to, and I'll show you how I did that in just a little bit. Now onto the 4th part, which was the hardest for me to do, so I suggest getting a friend or a sibling to help you do it. For the 4th part of this video, which was the hardest for me to do, was making some kind of way to attach the Fresnel lens to the 2 A-frame structures I have built. And so what I came up with was some copper piping and some metal strapping and a lot of screws to hold it on. As you can see, here's a picture of it if you can get a good idea. Here's another angle. There's not a real trick to really do it, but what I did was I drilled a hole through the copper pipe that was attached to the Fresnel lens, and I screwed it down so that it couldn't move, and then I put screws on top and below that copper pipe so that it couldn't wiggle around. And then I did that on the other side, and I placed the Fresnel lens on the ground, and I was able to hook up the metal strapping so that it connected the copper tubing from the Fresnel lens to the structure. And so this worked pretty well, but I did have to tweak it a little bit, and I suggest after you are done strapping it off, make sure you put some cross members between the 2 A-frame structures, or else you risk damaging the copper pipe and the Fresnel lens. So having cross members go across will really help you a lot. Now after getting part 4 done, part 5 should be a breeze. Now on to part 5. Part 5 is just going to be how to use this thing safely and efficiently. The first thing you want to do is you want to line up the front end of the Fresnel lens to the sun as best you can. Eyeball the front of the Fresnel lens towards the sun, and you want to be careful at this stage because you don't want to accidentally burn yourself, because this does get extremely hot enough to melt metal. So you want to be careful how you do this. So now that you have it lined up at the sun, you want to carefully bring back the Fresnel lens by rotating it on its hinge so that it's perfectly perpendicular to the sun. Now that you know how to make and use a Fresnel lens, don't forget to like and subscribe and tell all your friends about how to make this. And always remember, safety third. See you later.